Hello there YouTube, my name is Chuggy, and today I'm playing some Battlefield 3, playing some Conquest on Gulf of Oman, and today, at the request of many of you, today I have some jet gameplay for you. And to be frank, I am not the world's greatest pilot. Part of the reason why I haven't been so quick, I don't know, to get this gameplay out to you guys. But today what I hope to talk about is the foundations, the fundamentals of the jet, how to get the baseline there so you can then build on that and do some more damage in the jets as you play the game. Now, I am not the world's greatest jet pilot, hence why I am going to, I don't know, come at this commentary in this angle. I can certainly talk about the fundamentals, but I am a pretty bad pilot in the jet, to be honest. I can just about, keep myself alive, but that's about it. So what you're going to be seeing today is me engaging air targets, me engaging ground targets, and hopefully I'll be able to talk through what I'm doing and why. Hopefully, again, to show you this baseline of how to get the, the basics done in the jets so you can build from there. As I've mentioned, I'm a crap pilot and I make a lot of mistakes. I hit the ground a couple of times, I hit other aircraft a couple of times. Please do forgive me for that, but sometimes, you can't think quick enough to avoid everything. It happens, we're human anyway. So, the jets, I can quite happily and easily say, are the most difficult vehicle to use in Battlefield. Purely because, obviously, in terms of the landmass and whatever else that you're piloting around, you're going pretty damn quick. So you've got to be thinking, a couple seconds ahead of where you're going to be, what you can engage, all that kind of thing. And that process isn't really helped with how the game currently, plays out. Now, when you first start using the jets, all you have is the main cannon, as you can see I'm using here on this F-35 ahead of me. A very powerful cannon fires a mighty large bullet and does a heck of a lot of damage, but the problem is, it's kind of like bringing a knife to a gunfight, especially when you're trying to fight a more experienced jet pilot. They will have flares, perhaps even air radar, who knows what else, to try and help them stay alive. And basically, when you first get in a jet, it's all about self-preservation, I guess. Now, when you first start, you have no countermeasures, you have nothing, you just have the cannon. So your first 300 points are going to have to be either pure, talent to actually down other jets with no way to defend yourself, or you're going to have to play the game a little bit. Now, one way you can get 300 points very easily is to not actually fly the jet. And there are a couple of videos of this floating around YouTube where basically what will happen is a pilot will jump in a jet, and what they'll do is they won't take off. They will just drive the jet on the ground to a flag, cap the flag in the jet, and they'll get the 300 points for the capture and the assist, whatever else happens. And that is one way of getting your countermeasures so you can start to think about air-to-air combat. Quite a funny way, probably one which the game designers over at DICE didn't think of, but it's one nonetheless. Probably the way that they did expect people to play and use the jets is obviously as an anti-air role, and frankly when you're flying the jets, that is your job. Your job is to try and capture and maintain your team's control of the skies, and as I'll be talking about in a minute, it's very much a dog-eat-dog relationship, because when the jets do their jobs well, everyone benefits. So to actually engage other aircraft and destroy them, again, is not simple. Unfortunately, just the way that the game plays out now, with the way that the flares are and the anti-air missiles are, it's basically pointless to carry anti-air missiles, as the flares will, well, you can deploy the flares, trash whatever missiles are coming at you. You can deploy those flares and have them recharge before the next set of missiles can get locked on and fired at you. The result is, if you're the attacking aircraft with the anti-air missiles, you're never going to hit the target, so you may as well just stick to the chain gun or the cannon, whatever you want to think of it as. And that's basically what I have grown accustomed to while I fly the jets. I don't bother with anti-air missiles anymore. I just carry the flares, keep myself safe, and try and go on the offensive with the cannon. And all you need to do to kill targets with the cannon is line up the shots. If you've ever played the recon kit, you'll know that to engage targets at very long range, what you have to do is kind of estimate where your target will be in the time it'll take your bullet to leave your rifle to where they are. And in the act of doing that, you'll aim slightly ahead, forwards, backwards, whatever it may be, to your target. the exact same technique applies to the jets. Essentially, you'll have your target reticule, as you can see here, and all you've got to do is aim roughly where you think your target will be by the time the bullet hits it. And as I'll call out a little bit later, there are a couple of good examples of this. It does look like I'm firing out into open air, but as the enemy jet just maneuvers, it will fly into the bullets and it will destroy itself as a result. So that's all you really need to do. And as you've just seen, the cannon, when used on an aircraft, is very, very powerful. Now, actually, one thing to mention about that little interaction there. Now, there are 3 types of jets in Battlefield 3 that you can fly. Actually, tell a lie, 5. You've got the A-10 Thunderbolt, the Frogfoot, I forget its actual designation, but it's called the Frogfoot. You have the Super Flanker here, which I'm flying. You have the F-35, which the Americans are flying here. And then you've got the F-18. Now, the F-35, compared to the Super Flanker, which it will fight against, is, excuse me, a little, I don't know, hopeless at getting out of dogfights. It handles like a barge. Now, it does have the advantage of being able to go into hover mode, and it does have the advantage of its cannon, its main gun, doing a lot more damage than your standard cannon on a Super Flanker or an F-18. And here is this leading the shot stuff. You can see just firing out into open air, and the bullets are hitting the target later on. Anyway, the F-35 is terrible in the handling stakes, and most dogfights will be won by the aircraft which can get itself on the enemy's tail the quickest. And as you just saw actually in that interaction, purely because my aircraft was more agile, I was able to turn and get on the back of that F-35 before it realised what happened. And that is something you need to be very aware of while you're flying the F-35s. The hover mode, just the way it's currently implemented anyway on console, is that you have to press and hold the brake, if you will, brake key, decelerator key to enter hover mode, but bear in mind that you also have to do that to slow down. And often what will happen is you want to slow down, try and get into a turning dogfight, or get out of one more to the point, and you'll go into hover mode. And obviously it's a lot easier for someone to hit a stationary target than a moving one. Not good. So something to bear in mind while you're out on there on the battlefield trying to avoid death in an F-35. You are instantly at a disadvantage, and I hope that DICE will do something to realign, let's say, the aircraft so they're a bit more balanced in terms of the handling. So yeah, that's something to be aware of, and certainly do not feel bad if you're in an F-35 and you're just constantly getting shot down by super flankers. It's just the way that the game is at the moment, which is unfortunate. Now, one thing I mentioned previously, a few minutes ago, is that there is a dog-eat-dog relationship with the vehicles and the game in general in Battlefield 3, and it's fairly straightforward to think of, really. Just think of like the animal food chain. Dog eats cat, say. That sounds better. Dog eats cat, and cat eats mouse. So you got a chain of events. Now let's sub in some vehicles from Battlefield, shall we? So we have the jets as the dogs. Jets need to be aware of other dogs because they will, dogs will kill dogs. Well, that's a really bad thing to say, but you can get where I'm going here. The jet's worst enemy is a jet, but their prey, the easiest thing they can kill, is a helicopter. Again, slow moving, almost stationary compared to a jet target, very easy to gun down and destroy. Speaking of which, whoops, a little mid-air collision there. The helicopters, again, much like the jets, their worst enemy, or the enemy that they need to be aware of most, are other helicopters. That will be what will destroy them 9 times out of 10, but they also need to be very aware of enemy jets, because the jets will quite simply destroy them. They have more, if you will, power behind them, in terms of, they are a lot quicker, their weaponry can be a bit more diverse. The chain gun, for example, is a lot more deadly. That's not to say that the jet can be cocky in that regard. It knows that it has the advantage, but certainly, a helicopter has to be very, very aware of a jet, and as a result has to, downplay itself, make itself, not as much of a target, let's say. And ultimately, on the bottom of the food chain, you have tanks and vehicles. Now, the helicopter eats vehicles for breakfast, and that's the way I play the helicopters anyway, especially the attack helicopter. I go after vehicles a lot, and as a result, vehicles have to maintain a fairly low profile to the helicopter. So what often you'll see happen is a player will be, let's say, rolling around in a tank. They get destroyed by a helicopter a couple of times, they'll see a jet's available, jump in the jet and destroy the helicopter. You can see the kind of chain of events going on there. And essentially that's where the jets come into play, and that's where the jets can be very, very useful, especially when used properly. If you're in a jet and you can maintain the airspace for your team, not a mid-air collision, if you can maintain the airspace for your team, that means that your helicopters can go around, unpestered by other jets or helicopters. You can take down the helicopters yourselves as well as the jets, because you can quite easily destroy the helicopters, and as a result your helicopters can then destroy the tanks, the vehicles, whatever it may be. And as a result, your infantry on the ground ultimately will have an easier time of playing the game. Now, very long derived analogy here, but what I want to try and get at is basically if the jets are doing their jobs properly, everyone benefits on your team. And as a result, you will be able to play the game much more, straightforwardly. That's not the right word at all, and grammar goes out the window yet again. But it makes your job of flying the jet, or playing the game, even much simpler. So it's a case of, if the jet's in the right hands and doing its job, which it needs to, your team will all benefit from that. But as I've kind of alluded to, getting off the ground, excuse the pun, with the jets is very difficult. However, once you have your countermeasures, it'll slowly become easier. And once you get comfortable and you have most things unlocked, you can start to be a really powerful jet player. Now, what I want to talk about briefly is my personal setup with the jet, which I personally think gives me the versatility to be able to do a little bit of everything and hopefully get this nice, chain of events going for my team. Now, in my first sort of attachment or personalization, whatever, customization slot, I have air radar, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, the air radar does what it says on the tin, really. It highlights on the maps all aircraft, bases, as well as land vehicles on your map. And obviously that means, first of all, you don't have to go looking for targets. One of the biggest problems I had in the jets before I had air radar is I just did not know where anyone was. This means that obviously you can hunt down targets. For example, there's a transport helicopter very easily, but it also means you can be very alert and aware to enemy jets, etc., coming in to try and catch you. It's like medicine, the best form of medicine is prevention. If you can avoid a conflict initially and perhaps get the upper hand by circling around someone, do that. That will only be beneficial. So that's what I roll with in slot 1. I used to roll with stealth because I thought take longer for missiles to lock on, but certainly since I've had air radar, I've had a lot less problems in terms of jets engaging. Again, if I can engage them, or I'm aware of them before they're aware of me, it's a win-win. Now, for my weapon slot, my secondary weapon, I tend to roll with the rocket pods, but in this game I just so happen to be using the guided rocket. Now, the guided rocket is exactly the same as the version you get in the tanks and the helicopters. You target up a vehicle, in this case it's pretty much all ground vehicles unless you have a laser lock, and you get the lock, you fire the missile, and that's it. It's a fire and forget weapon. It will seek and hopefully do a lot of damage to your target. If you get a laser lock, first of all, that means you can engage other targets, we're talking air targets and such, and your rocket does additional damage, which is always nice, and will more often than not result in a disable or perhaps even a destroy. So very useful if you want to do a pure anti-ground roll. On the flip side, you've got the anti-air missiles, which are obviously purely anti-air, and as I've kind of discussed, I kind of discount them completely these days. The flares, just the way that they are, the fact that they recharge so quick, it basically makes them completely useless. So unless you're good with baiting flares, as in locking on someone, firing one missile, getting them to flare, then lock on, again fire your second missile, rinse, repeat, you're not going to get too much luck. And most players, especially seasoned players in the vehicles, will know what you're doing, so they just simply won't flare in the first place, so you can't get that chain of events going. Not so good. So that's the other way you could play it. Now, the way I like to play it these days anyway is rocket pods, because it gives you the versatility between anti-ground and anti-air with practice. They're dumbfire rockets, they're unguided, much like the sort of cannon which I'm even firing here at this F-35. It means that if you can get the trick of aiming up the shot on the vehicle, ahead of time, all that kind of thing, and use rocket pods, you can obviously hit air vehicles as well as ground vehicles, and of course because they're dumbfire, they can't be flared. Very useful. Personally, I think it just gives the versatility, which makes you not only a good ground fighter to help your helicopters wipe out vehicles, infantry, whatever it may be, but it gives you the ability to attack air as well, just as well as yet another fail, and this time it actually nearly kills me. Tactical ditch. So yeah, I personally roll with the rocket pods. These days I think they're very useful. They take some getting used to, but very useful nonetheless once you get used to them. Finally, I roll with IR flares, and literally I think it should be the de facto thing you should roll with. If you want to roll with the extinguisher and try to, you know, take your chances with rockets hitting you, you can do that, and likewise you can use the ECM jammer to try and jam rockets as well. But frankly, I think, you know, IR flares, they're simple, they're straightforward, they work. Why not use them? That's what I roll with. That's what I think works best. And certainly, you know, it keeps the missiles off your back, it keeps you alive a little longer, and hopefully alive long enough to be able to do some more damage. Now, this is this sort of sequence of helicopters and vehicles, this dog-eat-dog world, literally in action right here, because our jets, at this point in time anyway, aren't attacking this helicopter. Our team here is being destroyed here at B. Literally, this literally has only just come across my mind. What I'm talking about in action. So yeah, the jets, there you go. Perhaps, I don't know what I'm saying here. No, perhaps, you know, what I'm talking about here is true. Egats, I don't know. Anyway. That worked quite nicely, a nice metaphor, I don't know. And actually, speaking of metaphors, I now realise what's coming up next. Again, you'll see the importance of having air control. Now, you see, I've just gotten this Havoc here. First time I've not been in a jet all game. Being locked on instantly, like, oh, what the heck's doing that? Try and flare, nope, don't work. And then this. Jet, killed by a jet, there you go. Case in point, I think. Anyway. So yeah, the jets, when used properly, and as you've just seen, unfortunately, my detriment, they can be very lethal. They can help your team massively when being used properly at the top of the food chain. However, to use them properly, you need a lot of practice. Obviously, that means about, you know, practice, going to unranked servers, all that kind of jazz. And, you know, practice makes perfect. You're just going to have to, you know, take it step by step and to see what happens. But even if you are the world's best jet pilot, I would still advise, you know, only, let's say in a game where, I don't know, you're guaranteed to win because, you know, you've got really good teammates or you've got a good team play going on, that you should really think about going in the jets. Because frankly, at least from my perspective anyway, the jets are a waste of a good infantry fighter. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm the kind of player who likes to get, you know, I don't know, my feet dirty as an infantry player, you know, killing enemies, taking flags, whatever it may be. And I find that I score more points on the ground than I do in the air, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. And the fact that you're not taking objectives and such when you're in a jet, there's like an opportunity cost going on to your team and yourself. You know, you won't be scoring as many points yourself, you won't be able to apply your skills on the ground, say. So I guess what I'm trying to say really is the jets, it's a time and place kind of thing. Either you can use those vehicles and, you know, get this dog-eat-dog animal chain food reaction going very quickly and easily, which is good, but if you see it's not working for you, stay away from the jets. And in fact, in general, if you're at all, for any reason, unsure of how to use a vehicle in Battlefield, stay away from it. Especially off the start of the game. You cannot tell you the number of times I've been in, say, like a attack helicopter. The pilots just bail at the sign of a lock. It's like, ugh, you get it. Anyway, the jets are a great tool. I guess this is what I want to say. The jets are a fantastic tool. But if you see the game, for whatever reason, not quite going your way or anything like that, I cannot recommend enough to jump out the jet and get fighting on the ground. It's all well and good having control of the air, but if you don't have control of the ground, what's the point? Guys, I think that pretty much wraps it up nicely. The jets are amazing, they really are. They take a lot of skill to use properly, but it's a time and place thing, and you really need to practice to get the best out of them, I guess. Anyway, that wraps up the jets, and very quickly I want to talk about two things. First of all, Let's Play Crisis, I'm pretty much going to perma-shelve it for a bit anyway. I still am not sure about this music collection society, whatever they are, so I'm permanently shelving it for now. However, this won't be the only video you see from me on Wednesday. In fact, I'm going to be uploading 2 videos as well on Friday. I had a request on Twitter, and let me just find the name here. here we go, Omnius Mundi on Twitter, asked to see some Formula 1 2011. Now, for those of you who don't know, I, along with Tom from my squad, Matt from my squad, and Mike from my squad, we are doing on Tom's channel a little series of us doing 50% races on F1 2011. And what you'll be seeing from me today, and on Sunday, I should correct myself, Sunday, is the qualifying and race respectively, uploaded from my perspective, which I haven't done before. So if you want to see any of the races previously, head over to Tom's channel and you'll be able to see my perspective. Well, part 1 today. Anyway, guys, as always, I'll wrap it up here. Thank you so very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you could leave a like, dislike, whatever you believe the video deserves, that'd be fantastic. If you have any tips or comments yourself about the jets or anything like that, please do leave it down in the comments below. And if you're new to my videos, you can always subscribe if you'd like to. Guys, as always, thank you so very much for watching. I've been Chuggy, and I will see you next time out on the battlefield.